This is Saturn Girl. Like this video and subscribe to my channel. Comment below because I want to know what you think. And it helps me out with the algorithm. Also, please click that bell when you subscribe and select all so you get notified when my new videos drop. Anyway, today's another transit video. And remember, we do a couple primary things in these, right? Number one, we talk about what a particular transit means. Number two, we look at how it expresses in birth charts using celebrity examples. And then we look at some events in history that correlate with this transit to get a sense of what's in store for us. And then we do your horoscopes in another video because this would be way too long, And we do that for the big transits, of course. And this transit is another big one. So what's going on? Well, Mars, our man of malice, will enter his home sign of Scorpio on October 11th. And he'll remain there until November the 24th, right? Let's take a look at the chart here to see. Oh, look, there's Mars. Oh, Master Mars. Let's see, let's go forward a couple of days. There he is on the edge of Libra. On the edge. So I walk it on by. And Mars steps to the edge to see his world below. Right? I don't know if anyone knows Collective Soul. That was from the 90s when I was a kid. So you see here, Mars is dipped into Scorpio. I mean, it says the 12th here, but So, what does this look like? I mean, holy hell, Batman. What does this mean for us? For you, for me? Well, let's take a look. Okay. Well, so number one, what does Mars mean in astrology? Mars is conflict, competition, and violence. Mars is masculinity. He's also pain and injuries, illnesses and enemies. You might recognize those as some of the significations for the 6th house, which partially gets some of its meanings from Mars because that's where Mars rejoices. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. Mars is also our passion and our drive. He goes after what he wants, doesn't he? Desire. We think of Venus as desire, but Mars is sort of like, take. He's also strength and will. On a positive note, he's courageous and he's valiant. So, well, what about Scorpio? If you follow me, you know that Scorpio would primarily get its meaning from its ruling planet, which is Mars, right? So you'll see a lot of overlap here with these things. So we see Scorpio associated with what? Struggles, enemies, and yes, even injuries and illnesses. But Aries is ruled by Mars too. What's the difference, right? What makes Scorpio so different? Well, several things. Primarily, though, I say that word way too much. Primarily. Most importantly, though, it's from the solar cycle. Remember, that's one of the main places that signs get their meanings. And where is the sign of Scorpio? Where in the year does it occur? Well, it occurs right after Libra, the place of equal night and equal day. So, Scorpio, then, is where the nights first become longer than the days in the Northern Hemisphere, right? And that's where astrology comes from. So, anyway. Now, this is where the light wanes in the solar cycle. The sun is dipping down towards the winter solstice, and the nights grow longer, so that darkness dominates. It's where we get a lot of the symbolism of Scorpio regarding death and decay. You see, the idea, esoterically, right, is that Libra is where the soul makes a conscious choice. The soul, right? I like to say consciousness. But anyway, the soul makes a conscious choice to descend into hell, to redeem what? The material nature. Once again, we can see bits of the Christ myth represented, right? He descended into hell, right? And then he ascended into heaven, right? To judge the living and the dead. The idea of redemption, if we understand this symbolically, then we don't have to get so hung up on the religious side of it. Because every religion has its esoteric counterpart, which has to do about one's relationship to existence. Anyway, now I'm just preaching. So, because Scorpio's on the waning cycle of the sun, meaning the sun is decreasing in light, we think of Scorpio as more withdrawn and inner focused. Whereas Aries, on the other hand, is on the waxing cycle. And he's more like Mars turned outward, right? Attacking people head on in the light of day. I'm Aries! Right? Scorpio is like Mars turned inward, right? What's that look like? Well, attacking discreetly. Under the cover of darkness, right? It's secretive, scheming, plotting. Think of stealth or hidden aggression. I always like to point out revenge. I always joke that for Scorpio, revenge is a dish best served often. So, Aries goes after your outward vulnerabilities, doesn't it? Trying to break through your armor. Whereas Scorpio goes after your hidden and inner vulnerabilities, bypassing your armor entirely and piercing into your emotions and insecurities. That scorpion tail. Sting, sting. Well, Scorpio is also a water sign. That makes it a bit more passive and perhaps more emotionally driven compared to Aries. We can also see that Scorpio's obsession comes from its Mars turned inward, but also acting through the water element, right? Water clings to things. Now, that's like Mars projected through the emotions, isn't it? And Scorpio can be what? Very sensitive and easily hurt. I always joke with Scorpio that no one really gives enough of a rat's ass about you to be plotting against you. Like, that's in your head, you know. Usually. Like, people don't care. Anyway. You see, I think that's where the impulse for revenge comes from, because that easily hurt sort of nature. But Scorpio's also a fixed sign, right? That means that Scorpio doesn't let go of things easily. You know? We just talked about revenge. But before you actually have the revenge, you have to have a strong grudge that motivates you to take revenge, right? Well, you see, Scorpio holds on to hurts and betrayals, just like Cancer holds on to old photos, you know? I always joke with them like, yo, Scorpio, if you tell enough people that you're never speaking to them again, you'll literally never have to talk to anyone ever again. I think this also alludes to the obsession quite a bit, you know? That fixed nature where it's really hard to let go of stuff. Especially grudges, you know? Like the movie The Grudge. I can't do that sound. Anyway, if you ever saw the movie The Grudge. Well, Scorpio's also a feminine sign, right? We could just as easily say yin or yang, and in this case it would be yin. Which also indicates the less outwardly reactive nature, right? And really indicates more the internalization of anger and aggression, right? which can be terribly uncomfortable for your bowels, which is probably why Scorpio rules the bowels. I'm joking, but you feel me. Well, what about Mars in Scorpio? Scorpio Mars is so hot to me. It's so, so hot. They really know how to sting you, don't they? Right? 3 of my exes have Mars in Scorpio. I've really tried to swear them off, I promise. But they sting so good. Plus, I have a habit of falling in love with women who want to or unalive me. It's a terrible habit. Well, Mars is at home here. But he expresses himself in the dark. Aries is Mars in the light, whereas Scorpio is Mars in the dark. Mars in the light is action. Mars in the dark is horror. The horror. The horror. None of you have probably seen Apocalypse Now, have you? My dad was a colonel and he made me watch Apocalypse Now and Platoon and all these military movies. You know? So anyway. Well, Aries Mars also. Aries can lose interest in things because it's not fixed. It's cardinal. It starts things. It has a harder time maintaining and finishing them, doesn't it? Meanwhile, though, Scorpio Mars is more like a predatory vibe, like the wolf in the bushes, cautiously stalking her prey, right? Intensely focused, right? Fixed, that fixed focus. Well, I also think of Mean Girls because Scorpio Mars can be quite catty. I think of people who retaliate excessively, you know, like the ruin your life kind of thing. Like, I want you to get them. I want you to get their parents. I want you to get their friends and even their dog, you know. It's like Aries will burn your hedges, while Scorpio will scorch your earth so that nothing ever grows ever again. I also think of people who are loyal defenders, right? Fixed, yeah? Who stick up for their friends and allies. You see, these people can be bullies, but they also often hate bullies. And they will go after someone with the same level of ferocity as if they were the ones being hurt, not just their friends. We also see verbal attacks, right? Now, I have a Gemini Mars. We are known for arguing, right? But Scorpio Mars is known to go right for the jugular, right? They may regret the harmful things that they say, but it's absolutely excruciating for them to admit when they were wrong. So you got to give them like a little out, like, well, we were both wrong, right? I mean, that was my Libra way of dealing with these partners, you know. Well, Scorpio Mars also is a clear and effective expression for Mars. And we can think of it as the feminine Mars, while Aries is more like the masculine Mars. Or, as I said, Mars of the night. I think of Dracula, when he says, "Listen to them, children of the night, what music they made." That was more like Bela Lugosi and less Gary Oldman. Anyway, you guys are so young. How will you know about Bela Lugosi? I shouldn't even know about Bela Lugosi, but I'm Saturn girl. So all my stuff that I'm attracted to is all old people things, you know. So, except for Aeropostale. Well, anyway, let's look at some celebrity examples to get a sense of how this expresses in real life. So I wrote some celebrities down, and the first one I wrote down is Taylor Swift. Taylor Swiftie. Right? I was so happy to see her encouraging her fans to vote. I was very excited about that. But she is a Scorpio Mars. So, she knows how to hold a grudge. In fact, she's had feuds with lots of other celebrities. I'm just going to name a few. Nicki Minaj, Katy Perry, Kim Kardashian. Even Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, who made a joke about her love life at the 2013 Golden Globe Awards, to which she snapped back that, well, there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. I mean, it was a joke. Like, I make jokes and people get mad at me too. And there's plenty of other feuds she's been in. Well, another one I thought was very important is Marie Curie. Now, she was the first woman ever to win the Nobel Prize. And it was for her trailblazing work on radioactivity. She even discovered radium, the famous element. Her Mars in Scorpio shows itself, though, in her obsession with her work. Right? And she even passed away from anemia that was likely caused, by all of her exposure to radiation. There's even a great biography on her called Obsessive Genius by Barbara Goldsmith. Well, who else did I write down? I wrote down Marianne Williamson. She's currently running for president in the Democratic Party, but you've probably never heard of her. So she's another mama of mine, my political mama. And she's been a spiritual guru for many years. She comes from the Course on Miracles teaching, which I was familiar with when I was younger. I chose a different way, but it's interesting stuff. Well, Mama Marianne is also famous for her temper. Some ex-staffers have made allegations about her screaming at them and even throwing her phone. Now, Marianne admits to having a temper, but she denies, ever throwing anything at anyone. So that's important. And I do still love her. Now, I mean, I'm not trying to apologize for her, but I've worked for many wacky chefs, and I would defy any of those staff to go and, hang out in the kitchen for, 12 hours. Anyway. Excuse me. Well, Kurt Cobain also had Scorpio Mars, and he was the famous frontman for the 90s alternative band Nirvana. I was a big Nirvana fan as a kid. Ugh. I think I was in 6th grade when he passed away. Anyway, many of us know about his mental health challenges and his his addiction challenges as well, and then also his toxic marriage to Courtney Love, which was sort of like one long addictive binge anyway. But apparently, Kurt Cobain was obsessive about other things too. He was apparently obsessed with aliens and the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was one of my favorite movies as a kid. It was really cool. I was into aliens as a kid too, which is probably why I'm so critical of a lot of that stuff now. Well, we also have Joe Brandon, the current president of the United States. Now, I mean, Scorpio Mars, the Dark Brandon thing, right? Dark Brandon. And apparently he's a fighter too. A reporter asked him back in 2016 what he thought of Trump. And his response was, "The press always asks me, don't you wish you were debating him? No, I wish I were in high school, so I could take him out back behind the gym." Right? The implication that he was, gonna get into some fisticuffs, right? So, I thought that was very Scorpio Mars. And then we also have Bruce Lee, right? Famous for being a martial arts expert and fighter, right? That's very Mars and Scorpio, the fighter. Think of the skilled boxer or MMA guy, right? Now, besides being that, Enter the Dragon was one of his most famous movies. And it was one of my favorite movies as a kid. So, and it's very sort of Scorpio Mars, but according to some articles I found, Bruce Lee was also a serial womanizer. cheating on his wife with a load of actresses, production staff, groupies, and even other people's wives. Like almost immediately after his child was born. So I think that was Brandon, who eventually became the Crow, where he passed away on that set, right? Well, another fighter we have here is Joe Rogan. He's the biggest podcaster in the world. Now, I'm not a fan. Well, I take that back. I was a fan when he was on news radio back in the 90s. If anyone else remembers that, you probably don't. News radio with Phil Hartman and Dave Foley from Kids in the Hall. Anyway. It was a fun show. And Joe Rogan was sort of like, the help. Now, he is a fighter too. He's an MMA guy, right? Which is very Scorpio Mars. But let's move on to someone else. Oh, now I have a slew of abuse people. Okay? So these are not good expressions of Scorpio Mars. We have Mel Gibson, the famous actor from Lethal Weapon. And he also directed The Passion. Right? Now, he also infamously made anti-Semitic remarks after being pulled over for drunk driving. An ex-girlfriend also recorded very abusive sounding phone calls that he made to her. You can go check these out. They're pretty wackadoodle, Well, and then we also have Charlie Sheen, who was very big as an actor in the 80s. I don't know if anyone remembers Hot Shots or Hot Shots Part 2. They were sort of funny, ridiculous slapstick movies. But anyway, remember when he was winning? I'm winning! And then they asked him, are you bipolar? He said, I'm by winning! I've got Adonis DNA! Yeah. Well, you probably don't even remember that. But he's also been accused of assault and the R word by multiple people. He was even accused of locking a woman in the bathroom. And anyway, we won't get into all the specifics because I don't want to get in trouble. We also have Steven Seagal, another famous actor and martial arts expert, and another alleged abuser, right? You know what word I'm saying. Abuser, right? Someone who assaults other people, particularly women. Well, and he also, and again, alleged, I have to say alleged to be careful. Now, the other funny thing is he claims to be the only civilian to ever have disarmed a nuclear weapon. And apparently he was given that title after he gave a bunch of money to a certain organization. But that was from an article that I read. Now, he's also a famous supporter of Vladimir Putin, I have to say. And then we have Marilyn Manson, a.k.a. Brian Warner. He's also an alleged abuser, R-wordist, Although he did settle out of court on several of these cases. But he's had alleged behavior with multiple partners. And he even admits in his autobiography to badly injuring his mother by tossing a glass ashtray at her, hitting her under the eye. Just, I don't care how bad your mommy is. You don't do that. That's not nice. Well, then we have Alyssa Milano and Harvey Weinstein. I wanted to mention these two together because they're sort of intertwined. See, Milano was a famous actress and an abuse survivor who helped ignite the Me Too movement with her posts back in October of 2017. And Weinstein was a big Hollywood producer, helped found Miramax Films, and he became the focus of the Me Too movement. And many actresses and other women came forward to publicly call out Weinstein's behavior, and he was later convicted of his crimes. Well, what sort of events do we see that correlate with this? What types of events? I just picked a couple here. Number one, I said injuries and illnesses. So last time Mars was in Scorpio, November 2021. The global death toll from COVID-19 surpassed 5 million, according to Johns Hopkins University. But some estimates were actually twice that. The WHO, the World Health Organization, also designated the COVID variant known as Omicron. They designated it as a concern, as a variant of concern, because it had all these loads of mutations that gave it extra virulence. Now, around the same time, we also had the disaster at Astroworld. Remember, it was the Astroworld Festival, a big live concert in Houston, Texas, where 8 people were crushed, unalived, and another 13 were injured. And many people blamed the ticket company for not having better security or better personnel and staffing. So, now we also see events that have to do with retribution and revenge to a certain extent. So, around that same time, 2021, Britney Spears. Some people are calling her Britney Shears. I love her. I think she's wonderful. But she was finally cut loose from her conservatorship, which had run her life for 14 years, right? An LA judge ruled in her favor, and Britney was set free. Fly, Britney, fly. Anyway, I wish she'd waited until Mars was in Scorpio to do her knife dance, because that would have made perfect sense, you know? I love Britney. I would have married her back in the day. Maybe it wouldn't have been a good idea, but she's a Sag. She has the same birthday as one of my ex-girlfriends. So, anyway, also around then, Jacob Chansley, the so-called QAnon shaman, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for his participation in the January 6th Capitol riot. Now, when this transit also happened in November of 2021, Jeffrey Epstein's partner in crime, Ghislaine Maxwell, I don't speak French, but it's a French name, Ghislaine Maxwell, I can't do the accent properly, was found guilty of trafficking. You know what word I'm saying? Trafficking. In the state of New York, Manhattan. So, well, what could we see this time? Regarding retribution, the UK authorities now are conducting an investigation into assault allegations against Russell Brand, the famous YouTuber who used to be an actor until he couldn't get acting work anymore, probably because of stuff like this, because of his behavior, his alleged behavior. Alleged. There are certainly many allegations that seem to make this look not so good. So, more about this will likely come out during Scorpio Mars. Or Mars in Scorpio, rather. Now, we also just had the U.S. Congress narrowly avert a government shutdown, right? Through an 11th hour deal. But it was a temporary spending bill for 45 days. We've got nearly 40 days left until we have to go through the same thing, which is about the time that Mars goes into Sagittarius. I like to say Sagittarius, like saxophone, right? Saxophone. That's The Simpsons, you know? Anyway. So, we'll likely see political conflicts sharpen because of this partisan divide. And we'll likely see political violence as well. I really hope not, but it really looks like we will. And Mars right now is square Pluto, which is a difficult one, right? And often indicates violence as well. Well, Donald Trump is also embroiled in a few trials as well. In fact, there are 91 charges against him. So, but right now, the focus is on his fraud trial in New York. So, the consequences of his fraud trial could likely come out during this transit. Although it's more likely that he will appeal, right? But it's so funny because if you watched any of it, one of his lawyers is this very attractive woman with a gaming laptop, right? And the gaming laptop woman apparently forgot, according to articles I read, forgot to check off the jury trial box. So they don't get a jury trial. So we may hear about this quicker than normal. I don't know. Well, and our friend, or not so much friend, Elon Musk is being sued for defamation. Now, he retweeted false claims about a young Jewish man being an unmasked neo-Nazi who was filmed in Portland. And of course, all these people jumped on him. I mean, this poor man couldn't even return home. He couldn't even go home because he was being harassed so bad. Him and his parents had to move. I mean, that's just redonkulous. So, well, maybe this poor young man will start to get some retribution. So, anyway, well, what does this mean for you? Next video, we're going to do your horoscopes, okay? So, we'll talk about specifics in your life when we get there. But in the meantime, thank you for watching until the end. Remember to like, subscribe, and click the bell so that you get notified when my new videos drop. And please check out my other videos. They're very fun and educational, and I'm kind of cute and, you know, funny. So, and I do the best readings. It's science, you know. All my contact information is below. And you can also go to my website, frankielynch.com, to book a reading. Now, I love you. You're beautiful. And have a spectacular whatever you're having.